Let's talk about one of the biggest financial tests in adulthood ever: planning a vacation with your friends or even solo. And today on the How Much Pod, we'll be talking about your money meeting purpose, your money meeting your personality, and most importantly, planning a vacation without any financial trauma to it. I am your host, Mugabe Patsy, aka the Money Girl, and I will be steering the ship as we have this whole conversation on how to have a conversation about money before you go on a trip with your friends or even do it solo. Because one thing is clear when it comes to planning a trip with your friends or even solo, you'll see different money personalities coming into light. So somebody wants luxury, someone else is balling on a budget, somebody else is more of the activity explorer, another one is a relaxation traveler, another one just wants to have her best life and she's just all about the picturesque place, but everything costs vibes. But should the vibes cost us the alignment of our friendship? Should the vibes come with resentment? Should the vibes really come with debt? That's what we're going to be covering in today's podcast. And I'll get right into it. First and foremost, one mistake I am learning and retweaking in my everyday finances is before we even think about the destination is what budget range am I working with? What budget range feels comfortable? Please note, I have used the word comfortable and not affordable because comfortable creates that sense of emotional safety, right? So it even triggers our mind to start thinking. So when you have that budget in mind, you're able to work backwards without the anxiety of a trip or feeling like, oh my God, I have this trip coming up. I have to. Because you may even have the money, but at the same time, you're feeling a lot of this comfort and this ease as you plan for that trip with friends. So, number one, have a budget in place. As you work towards the destination, also think about what's a feasible timeline that I'm comfortable with. Is it 2 months? Is it 3 months? How am I going to be able to pay this particular figure over time? Another thing I'm also learning is when it comes to having a conversation about the actual trip, so you've figured out the range, the time frame that you're going to be paying out this particular figure. It's very important for us to have the conversation on also the payment plan. We now get into the actual tidbits of how the money is going to work for us and have a guilt-free trip. I want to us to get into the second part of planning for this trip practically. So we have chosen the accommodation. We are feeling stress-free because no one wants to travel with someone who has paid for a trip but they're feeling stressed because you don't want to have passive aggressive vibes on the journey. So we're now getting to the actual tidbits of now the spending patterns and the spending personalities that come to life as we talked about earlier in the money personalities. So first and foremost is thinking about the accommodation arrangement, because are we going to be sharing rooms to maintain our privacy and because we have different things that we want to do on this trip, or are we going to be thinking about different avenues to keep saving up on that money because we are boiling on a budget? For someone who is boiling on a budget, or someone like me who is going to be out with their currency converter trying to figure out, okay, where can I move from accommodation to accommodation because I don't want to live in one place at a particular time. So nothing ruins friendships faster than unexplained friendship economics when it comes to accommodation. So let's also have that as one of our budget items. Privacy is also not a luxury, so don't feel attacked if a friend tells you she wants to stay alone or he wants to stay alone. At the end of the day, it's personal preference, and preferences actually cost money and they need some pricing. So also add that into the line items. So then after that, we're going to get into the daily expenditure and the daily spending, because we're going to be going out, trying out different restaurants or trying out different activities. What's everybody truly comfortable? What am I comfortable spending on a daily basis? Just for the sake of knowing and having clarity. There is no judgment here, as we have said time and again, because some people just want coffee and they want to do their promenades and they walk in the park. But others are like, I want bar, I want brunch, I want cocktails, I want the whole experience. And neither is wrong. At the end of the day, it comes to alignment. How much more alignment do we have? So are we having conversations to understand How are we splitting the daily bills? Are we splitting it as per a percentage? It's easier when you're, in a partnership with your let's say partner, for lack of a better word. But if it's not the case and it's a group trip, are we paying for this X, Y, and Z individually? Have the conversation. Otherwise, resentment often shows up at around day three of the trip, depending on how long or short your trip is. And then, most importantly, just imagine you've planned your trip and there's a World War X happening, and now you find yourself that you don't have the flexibility. How are we dropping in that item for that emergency fund to help us when unexpected costs happen? Transport may change, medical things may show up. There are just some spontaneous experiences that we may just want to relive and be a part of. So, how are we having that financial independence, even budgeted for in our emergency line items? Because we also want to protect the group harmony. Now, for solo travelers, I recently traveled to Cape Town. I did a solo trip, and this is my popular opinion that solo travel is actually sometimes the most financially responsible option when it comes to planning for your vacation, and I'll tell you why. It's it's it makes sense first and foremost if you're planning and you have different spending patterns, or your budget typically is not in alignment with what the group has in mind, or when you just want rest and it's not a negotiation. So sometimes you just don't want to do any of the activities, you just want to relax, some rest and recuperation, some R&R. So solo travel is teaching me more and more powerful money skills when it comes to negotiation and haggling, when it comes to decision ownership, when it comes also to budget awareness. There's some things that I have to prioritize and others that I have to deprioritize. And honestly, the peace that comes with it surpasses all human understanding, as the Bible teaches us. But at the end of the day, the return on investment is something I cannot vouch enough for. You don't need to overspend trying to match the group energy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not decampaigning group trips. I'm just saying, are we spending in alignment with what our money personality is? And alignment is just one of the ways you can prioritize self respect when it comes to creating healthy boundaries around your money. Now, for the final segment, I want to create a practical budget that I use, a budget framework that I use when it comes to planning for our trips, whether it's in a solo setting or a solo vacation trip. And the budget formula comes down to these four items. Number one, 40% is going into my flights and accommodation, whether I'm traveling business or economy. At the end of the day, 40% of that budget is going to that. Then 30% will go into my experiences and food. Then 20% most times goes into my transport, logistics, internet. I need to plug us on an amazing app if you already don't use it. It's called Airlo. So sometimes you just use it when you want to get an eSIM card without actually buying the eSIM card at the airport. And then 10% is for your spontaneous fun because you're on vacation. Why aren't you enjoying? Plan for that activity, plan for that joy, and put it under that 10% budget range. At the end of the day, please be flexible. This is just what I use. It's not cast in stone, but intentional flexibility also helps you get the most out of your trip. And most importantly, financial maturity is not about saying no to the trip, whether it's in a group setting or solo. At the end of the day, it's about traveling without any financial anxiety. So before your next trip comes up, whether you're doing it in a solo setting or a group setting, ask yourself, are we truly aligned financially, or are we just excited on an emotional point of view? Because at the end of the day, the group may make it to Instagram and the other social media, but how is it reflecting on your bank account statement? I hope that after this, listening to today's session, today's podcast episode, that you feel empowered to understand that we can live a soft life with some stable, solid systems when it comes to planning for your vacation. And with that said, I'll see you on the very next episode, and I invite you to subscribe if you haven't already and you have reached the very end. Thank you.